5 members.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Housing Real Property. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the crunch we've got here. We have lots of bills to go through, but we're going to have to readjust our schedules as we go along. We adjusted our schedule down to just 3 bills, but we still don't have time for that either. Now we're going to have to readjust our schedule down to just 1 bill. That bill is 1151, 1151. We've had a little bit of situation here where we have 2 sets of amendments from the Prince George County delegation for HB 360. We need to figure that out. We'll come back to that very, very soon. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, because of time constraints, Ben, if you could just go right into HB 1151, I certainly would appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Holmes, and I sent a request to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so the title of the bill is Residential Real Property Sales Appraisals. There's no fiscal impact. There have been some amendments, which we'll definitely discuss. The amendments were based on the testimony. Some more background. This bill is, as it says, residential real property, and it concerns appraisals. It's in Title 14, which is the miscellaneous title of the real property article, which has some existing law on appraisals. The first provision here for 14104.1, that's just the existing law on appraisals. I think there are some technical changes going on, like replacing the pronoun there, but that's the existing law. And this existing law it's what requires a lender to provide a copy of an appraisal to the borrower at their request. And then the appraisal can also be submitted to another lender if the lender has rejected their loan application. So that's the existing law. Getting into the bill as amended. The first part of the bill, let's see, what this says is for subsection A here, what's going on is a seller or a seller's agent at any point in the sale process can provide information obtained by the seller relating to the appraisal. And so that's going to include your comps. And then I think cost approach is more industry like terminology for what was kind of like the basis for the appraisal. A2 here is that the appraiser needs to accept that information and consider that information that was provided. B2 or B1 provides that if the appraiser is concluding that the appraisal was lower than the contract price for the sale of the property, then the appraiser has to notify the lender, and the lender must notify the prospective buyer and buyer's agent. And then that's important because in B2, the buyer can then notify the seller and the buyer. Then the seller and the buyer have 48 hours to provide additional information to the lender about the appraisal and opportunity for reconsideration by the appraiser. I was speaking with the sponsors some more about this. They were thinking it should be 2 calendar days, depending on how this information might be received, like on the weekend. So that's just one outstanding amendment to make on the bill, but otherwise, that's the extent of that. And then let's see, moving into C2 here, if the value of the property is lower than, this is for the owner, this is regarding as it says in C1, it concerns the refinancing or mortgage or refinancing a mortgage. So in C2, if the value of the property is lower than an owner's expected value, the owner also has a right to provide additional information, which you can see there in C2. Okay, so it's kind of like notice. The bill's kind of focused on notice, getting more information, and informing an appraisal that is made generally. Yeah, that only again applies to HELOCs and refinancing. And then D here is a this provides that a copy of the appraisal or reconsideration must be provided by the lender to a requesting party at no cost. And then E is about any training or continuing education for these appraisers in the state should include information on the requirements of this section. Again, just kind of like in keeping, helping appraisers stay up to date on best practices. That E there that's added kind of speaks to the F that is struck here. There was a bunch of conversations with DHCD and others about this, establishing procedures for the challenging of an appraisal or developing informational materials on the requirements of this section. But speaking with the sponsor more, they were good with the bill as it's been presented to the subcommittee, and they felt that there's a lot of existing information in place right now. So and that's with the office, the Commission on Civil Rights, and with the DHCD and the Department of Labor's appraisal board, I believe. So, yep, that's the bill, Chair Holmes.
To start things off, I'm going to make a motion first off, Ben, to change that 48 hours to 2 calendar days. That's in B2. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have that amendment here. Do I have a second on that one?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that 48 hours, changing it to 2 calendar days? Hearing none, all in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing or hearing none, that amendment is adopted. Secondly, I'm going to make a motion on all the other amendments. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any question on the other amendments? I see Delegate Healy's hand is raised. You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. My question's about the bill. So if we're going to do amendments first, I'll wait.
Sure. Any additional discussions on the amendments? I will say, ladies and gentlemen, that what we have attempted to do was to incorporate the suggestions made by the realtors and as made by the Maryland Bankers Association. So on the amendments, Delegate Naraki, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have read my mind as you always do. That was going to be my question about one. It sounds like we've obviously communicated extensively with those particular groups. Do we know, and I know they wouldn't have given us anything in writing, but do we know where their posture may be now with respect to the bill with all these various amendments?
I do know that there's been a lot of discussion going back and forth. Ben, I'll let you start first, and then I'll chime in after you, Ben, in terms of the discussion with the persons that have provided testimony. Ben, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks, Chair Holmes. Yeah, so at the bill hearing, the realtors mentioned that they recently received amendments. Those are the amendments that the subcommittee has seen with a couple of additional tweaks subsequent to that. But I think this is the amendments that they said after looking at them and checking in with them, they don't have any concerns.
Okay.
The Maryland Mortgage Bankers Association submitted some substantive testimony as well. They had a chance to speak with me. They had a chance to speak with the sponsor of the bill, and the sponsor of the bill and the bankers, they met. They were able to more or less, I think, move forward with most of the language that is before you. I wasn't in that meeting, but they, like, some of the language, like you saw the F was struck, that came out. There's the A. I can pull up the screen, Chair Holmes, again real quick.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so the just some changes based on the amendment that the realtor saw, the updated version that we're looking at. The mortgage bankers wanted A3 out that you have before you, which is at the time of scheduling an appraisal of residential real property, the appraiser shall notify a seller of their right to provide information. That came out. There were a couple other parts that I think the delegate was saying something to the effect of maybe not, they weren't in 100% agreement, but I think they got to some place that both parties could live with. That was my general understanding, Chair Holmes.
Thank you. And one of the things that the Maryland Mortgage Bankers Association discussed in their testimony was about the reconsideration of value process, which was established back in October of 2024. And I think that for us to have extensive language in that ROV request for reconsideration of value, request for reconsideration of value, for us to have a lengthy discussion in this bill text would be problematic because that ROV is constantly being updated.
Sure.
That is why on the last portions of this bill, there is a responsibility from DHCD to publish the requirements and update those frequently on their website. That's why that's in there. So the reevaluation of value, there's a process where persons can go to look at it. That's why.
Okay.
I do
Thank you very
think
much.
I do think we made a Herculean effort to appraise, keep everyone up to date, and
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's been a lot of work I could see on this bill. So thank you very much for that. Thank
you're
you.
quite welcome. Delegate Healy, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I 100% for this bill. I think it's a great, and you've done great work on it. My only question is, and it won't matter to how I vote, but will any of this have any effect on the taxable evaluation of the property? So when you get your tax appraisal, will that change because of one of these, people asking for an update?
Well, your taxes are based upon, for example,
I mean, is it separate and apart, or is it, I mean, this bill is only in
separate and apart.
so whether it connects to that or not is another story, right?
Another story altogether, right?
Okay, that's all I needed to know. I just want to make sure that this didn't have a direct effect on people's property taxes.
Not a direct effect. Obviously, if the value goes up, you get taxed more. If the value goes down, you get taxed less. And other than that, it has no basic
But
effect
but
on
they only reevaluate the taxes every
every 3 years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
Right.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional discussions on the amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the amendments? I move the bill as amended,
Second.
and there's a second. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor of HB, 1151, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in opposition? I don't see any hands
Aye.
raised. Barry, is that opposition, Barry?
No.
I'm sorry.
I
Gotcha.
was
Okay.
leaving.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's unanimous for HB 1151. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that's the only bill that we can take up today. We have others. We have a lot of others. I'm going to try to get back to HB 360 today. At least we can get that one off of our calendar. So please stand by for announcements later. And we only have 8 minutes left anyway. So this meeting is now adjourned. More meetings to come. Meetings as in plural to come. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Al.